Life has a way of shaking us when we least expect it. One moment, everything seems stable, and the next, the ground beneath our feet feels uncertain. We ask ourselves in silence, why me? Why does the heart that prays still ache? Why does the soul that believes still feel heavy? And in those moments of weakness, when the nights grow longer and the tears fall quietly, it is easy to think that hardship is a sign of distance. But what if it is the opposite? What if the very trials that bend us are proof that we are seen, known, and cared for? Because strength is not born in comfort, and faith is not revealed in ease. It is revealed when you are tested, yet you still turn back with hope. When you fall, yet you whisper a prayer. When everything around you says give up, but something within you says hold on. Today is not about pain, it is about purpose. Not about breaking, but becoming. And if you are tested, then stay strong. Because sometimes the weight you carry is only placed upon the shoulders that are strong enough to rise higher. When people experience difficulty, the first instinct of the heart is often fear. Fear that something has gone wrong. Fear that they have been abandoned. Fear that the struggle itself is a sign of rejection. Yet one of the most profound spiritual truths is that tests are not necessarily punishments. Rather, they can be signs of divine attention and care. A loving teacher does not test a student who is not meant to advance, and a caring parent does not discipline a child they have forgotten. In the same way, when a believer is tested, it is not because they are insignificant, but because they matter. The very act of being tested points to a relationship, a connection, and a purpose that goes far deeper than comfort alone. Many people assume that love should only look like ease, abundance, and uninterrupted happiness. But real love is more complex than that. Love wants growth, refinement, and strength. If life were only smooth, the heart would remain unpolished, the soul unchallenged, and faith unproven. Tests awaken something dormant within us. They force us to reflect, to return, to rely, and to realize that we were never meant to walk through life depending only on our own strength. When everything is taken away except faith, faith becomes clearer than it has ever been before. It is important to understand that not every hardship comes as a response to wrongdoing. Sometimes the purest hearts are tested in ways that seem unfair to the human eye. This is where perspective matters. A test is not a declaration of worthlessness. It is often an invitation to rise. Just as pressure turns carbon into diamonds, hardship shapes believers into people of depth, humility, and compassion. Without tests, patience would remain a theory. Gratitude would be shallow. Reliance would be optional. Through trials, these qualities become lived realities rather than abstract ideas. There is also a hidden mercy in being tested early or repeatedly. A person who is never challenged may grow attached to the world, assuming it is permanent and dependable. Tests gently, and sometimes painfully, remind us that stability does not come from circumstances, wealth, people, or status. They redirect the heart toward what is constant and unchanging. In this way, a test becomes a form of protection. It prevents arrogance, cleanses intentions, and softens hearts that might otherwise harden through comfort and destruction. Another aspect of divine testing is elevation. When someone is meant for a higher rank spiritually, emotionally, or morally, they are prepared for it. Preparation is rarely comfortable. A person destined to carry responsibility must first learn endurance. A soul meant to inspire others must first taste vulnerability. The test is not random, it is tailored. It meets a person exactly where they are capable of growing, even if they themselves cannot yet see it. What feels overwhelming today may later be recognized as the moment that reshaped one's character and redirected one's life. Tests also reveal sincerity. When everything is going well, faith is easy. Words of gratitude flow naturally, and belief feels light. But when ease is removed, what remains is truth. Do we still trust when answers are delayed? Do we still turn back when relief is not immediate? This is not for the sake of being exposed to others, but for clarity within ourselves. Trials strip away illusion. and show us who we really are, what we truly rely on, and where our hearts genuinely rest. It is also worth remembering that being tested does not mean being alone. In fact, moments of hardship are often when people feel the closest connection, even if they struggle to articulate it. Quiet prayers whispered through tears, moments of surrender after exhaustion, and patience practiced despite pain all carry immense weight. These moments are deeply seen, deeply valued, and never wasted. Nothing endured with faith disappears without meaning. Sometimes people look at others who seem untouched by difficulty and assume they are more favored. But ease is not always a sign of closeness, just as hardship is not always a sign of distance. Every person is on a different journey, with a different timeline, a different capacity, and a different role to play. Comparing tests misses the point entirely. What matters is how one responds to what they have been given. A small test borne with patience can outweigh a large test met with resentment. Understanding tests as a form of care changes how one experiences them. Pain may still hurt, loss may still ache, and uncertainty may still feel heavy. But despair no longer defines the experience. Instead, there is meaning, there is trust, there is the quiet reassurance that nothing is happening without wisdom, even when that wisdom is not yet visible. The heart learns to say, I do not understand, but I trust, and that trust itself becomes a source of strength. Over time, many people look back at the moments they once begged to escape and realize those moments taught them how to stand. They learned empathy because they were broken. They learned patience because they were delayed. They learned humility because they were humbled. What once felt like rejection revealed itself as refinement. What once felt like loss became clarity. The test did not come to destroy them, but to shape them into someone capable of carrying greater light, deeper faith, and stronger resilience. Hardship has a way of touching the deepest parts of the human heart, places that comfort never reaches. When life presses down, it exposes what lies beneath the surface, not to humiliate, but to refine. This is why trials are often described as a means of elevation, rather than mere suffering. Refinement is not destruction. It is a careful process of removing what is unnecessary, so that what is essential can shine. Just as raw gold must pass through intense heat to emerge pure and valuable, the human soul often requires difficulty to reveal its true strength and sincerity. In times of ease, many qualities remain dormant. Patience sounds admirable, but it has no substance until it is practiced in moments of delay or disappointment. Gratitude feels natural when blessings are visible, but it becomes profound when it exists despite loss. Sincerity in faith is easy when life flows smoothly, yet it becomes powerful when belief remains firm in the face of pain. Hardship pulls these qualities out of hiding and gives them life. It transforms abstract virtues into lived realities, shaping character in ways that comfort never could. Elevation through hardship does not always look like success or recognition. Often it happens quietly, internally, where no one else can see it. A person may lose something precious, yet gain clarity. They may be stripped of control, yet discover humility. They may feel weak, yet learn reliance on something far greater than themselves. These internal shifts are not small achievements. They are profound transformations that change how a person views the world, themselves, and their purpose. What appears as loss on the surface may actually be growth at the deepest level. Many people measure elevation through external markers, status, wealth, influence, but spiritual elevation follows a different scale. It is measured by resilience, by depth, by the ability to remain grounded when shaken. Hardship stretches the soul beyond its comfort zone, expanding its capacity to understand, empathize, and endure. Someone who has suffered sincerely often carries a softness in their speech, a wisdom in their silence, and a compassion that cannot be taught through books or advice alone. Their presence becomes calming because they have learned how to survive storms. Refinement also involves breaking unhealthy attachments. When life is easy, it is tempting to believe that security lies in people, plans, or possessions. Hardship disrupts this illusion. It forces the heart to reassess what truly matters and what can truly be relied upon. This process can feel unsettling, even painful, but it clears space for a stronger foundation to be built. A heart that has been detached from false security becomes lighter, freer, and more focused. It no longer panics at every loss because it has learned where real stability comes from. Another dimension of refinement is emotional maturity. Trials teach restraint, self-awareness, and control. They reveal how one reacts under pressure and where growth is still needed. Anger, fear, impatience, and despair may surface, not to condemn, but to be addressed. Through repeated challenges, a person learns to respond rather than react, to pause rather than explode, to trust rather than panic. This emotional refinement is a form of elevation that improves relationships, decision-making, and inner peace long after the hardship has passed. Hardship also elevates perspective. When someone has experienced difficulty, trivial concerns lose their grip. The noise of life becomes quieter and priorities become clearer. Things that once caused stress may no longer feel significant, while moments of connection, kindness, and sincerity gain greater value. This shift in perspective is not accidental. It is cultivated through struggle. It allows a person to live with intention rather than impulse, depth rather than distraction. There is also an unseen reward in enduring hardship with patience. Even when growth is not immediately felt, it is being recorded, shaping the soul in ways that will reveal themselves over time. Many people only recognize the elevation after they have moved beyond the trial. They look back and realize they are no longer the same person who entered that difficulty. They are stronger, calmer, more aware, and more grounded. The trial did not remove their pain entirely, but it removed their fragility. Refinement through hardship does not mean that pain is glorified or suffering is sought. It simply acknowledges that when difficulty arrives, it does not arrive empty-handed. It carries lessons, depth, and opportunities for growth that ease does not provide. The pain itself is not the goal. The transformation that emerges from it is. This understanding allows a person to endure without bitterness, to persevere without losing hope, and to trust that nothing endured with patience is meaningless. Elevation also prepares a person to support others. Someone who has walked through hardship understands silent pain, hidden struggles, and unspoken fears. They listen differently. They judge less. They offer compassion instead of quick advice. Their presence becomes a source of comfort because it comes from experience rather than theory. In this way, personal trials often become a means of benefiting others, turning private pain into shared healing. Over time, hardship refines not only the individual, but their relationship with life itself. It teaches acceptance without passivity, strength without arrogance, and hope without denial. It removes the illusion that happiness is constant and replaces it with the understanding that meaning can exist even in pain. The refined soul learns to stand with dignity through uncertainty, trusting that every difficulty carries the potential to elevate, strengthen, and transform in ways that ease never could. Strength is often misunderstood as the absence of fear, pain, or weakness, but in reality, true strength is born at the exact point where faith meets patience. It is not forged in moments when everything makes sense, but in moments when nothing does. When a person is tested and still chooses to believe, to endure, and to wait with dignity, something powerful begins to grow within them. This kind of strength is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted, and it cannot be shaken by circumstances because it is not built on them. Faith on its own can remain theoretical if it is never challenged. Patience on its own can feel impossible if it has no reason to exist. But when faith and patience come together, they give meaning to endurance. Faith provides direction, reminding the heart that there is wisdom beyond what is visible. Patience provides stability, allowing the soul to remain grounded while waiting for that wisdom to unfold. Together they transform suffering from something that crushes into something that carries purpose. In moments of hardship, impatience often whispers that relief must come immediately or not at all. It creates anxiety, frustration, and exhaustion. Faith responds differently. Faith says that timing is not random and that delay is not denial. When patience listens to faith, it becomes easier to endure uncertainty without falling apart. The waiting may still hurt, but it no longer feels empty. It feels intentional even when the outcome is unclear. This meeting point between faith and patience is where resilience is built. A person who believes but cannot wait may burn out emotionally constantly, feeling disappointed and overwhelmed. A person who waits but lacks belief may feel lost and hopeless, enduring without direction. But when belief anchors the heart and patience steadies the mind, the individual gains the ability to withstand pressure without losing themselves. They learn how to breathe through difficulty instead of being consumed by it. Strength that comes from faith and patience does not announce itself loudly. It does not need validation or applause. It shows itself in small, powerful ways. Getting up after a setback, continuing to do what is right even when it is hard, choosing hope when negativity feels easier, and remaining kind when pain would justify bitterness. These choices may seem insignificant in the moment, but they accumulate, shaping a character that is unbreakable over time. One of the most profound aspects of this strength is that it grows even when a person feels weak. There are times when someone believes they are failing simply because they are tired, emotional, or overwhelmed. Yet patience does not require the absence of emotion. It requires perseverance despite it. Faith does not require constant confidence. It requires sincerity. Even tears, doubts, and moments of silence can coexist with faith, as long as the heart does not turn away. In fact, these moments often deepen strength rather than diminish it. When faith meets patience, expectations begin to change. Instead of demanding immediate solutions, the heart learns to accept gradual progress. Instead of measuring success by outcomes alone, it begins to value effort, intention, and consistency. This shift reduces inner turmoil and replaces it with calm determination. The person no longer feels defeated by every obstacle because they understand that growth is a process, not an instant result. This kind of strength also teaches restraint. In hardship, there is a temptation to react impulsively, to speak out of anger, or to make decisions out of desperation. Patience slows the moment down, and faith provides clarity. Together, they help a person pause, reflect, and choose wisely. This restraint protects relationships, preserves dignity, and prevents regret. Over time, it becomes a defining trait, allowing the individual to navigate challenges with wisdom rather than chaos. Faith meeting patience also reshapes how pain is interpreted. Pain is no longer seen solely as an enemy to escape, but as an experience to move through with awareness. This does not romanticize suffering or deny its difficulty, but it removes its power to destroy hope. The heart learns that pain can coexist with trust, and uncertainty can coexist with peace. This understanding allows a person to remain emotionally present without being emotionally overwhelmed. Another outcome of this strength is inner independence. When a person relies on faith and patience, they are less dependent on external reassurance. They do not need constant explanations or guarantees to keep going. They develop an inner stability that allows them to stand firm even when others doubt them or when circumstances offer no immediate comfort. This independence does not isolate them from others, but it frees them from being controlled by external chaos. Over time, the strength born from faith and patience begins to influence others. People are drawn to calm endurance and steady hope. They find comfort in someone who has learned how to wait without bitterness and believe without arrogance. Without realizing it, the person becomes a source of inspiration, not because they speak loudly about strength, but because they live it quietly. Their journey becomes proof that endurance is possible and that growth can come from the most difficult seasons. This strength also carries humility. A person who has waited long and trusted deeply understands their own limitations. They know they did not survive by their own power alone. This humility softens the heart and removes pride, replacing it with gratitude, compassion. It allows the person to support others without judgment, knowing firsthand how heavy the path can feel. When faith meets patience, strength becomes sustainable. It does not fade when circumstances improve, nor does it collapse when new challenges arise. It becomes part of the person's identity, shaping how they respond to life as a whole. They may still feel pain, but they are no longer defined by it. They may still face uncertainty, but they are no longer ruled by fear. What began as endurance becomes confidence, and what began as waiting becomes wisdom. And in that meeting point, the soul discovers a strength that was always within reach, but only revealed through trust and time. Every trial that enters a person's life carries more than what is visible on the surface. While pain, loss, and confusion are immediately felt, there is often a layer of mercy and wisdom working quietly beneath the experience. This hidden dimension is not always apparent in the moment, which is why hardship can feel overwhelming and unfair. Human understanding is limited to what is immediate, but wisdom operates on a wider scale, unfolding over time and often revealing its purpose only after patience has done its work. One of the greatest struggles during hardship is the desire for clear answers. People want to know why something happened, what they did to deserve it, and when it will end. Yet not all wisdom is meant to be understood instantly. Some lessons are too heavy to grasp while emotions are raw. In such moments, mercy lies in being protected from knowledge that would burden rather than benefit. What seems like silence may actually be shelter, allowing the heart to endure without being overwhelmed by the full picture. Hidden mercy often appears in the form of redirection. A closed door may feel like rejection, but it may be preventing a greater harm or guiding a person away from a path that would have led to long-term regret. Loss can feel devastating, yet it may be clearing space for growth that could not occur otherwise. In this way, hardship acts as a quiet guide, steering lives toward outcomes that align with a deeper purpose, even when the direction feels uncomfortable or confusing at first. There are also moments when mercy appears through what remains rather than what is taken away. During trials, people often discover unexpected support, inner resilience, or clarity they did not know they possessed. These discoveries are not accidents. They are reminders that even in difficulty, care is present. Strength emerges where weakness was assumed, and hope surfaces in places that once felt empty. This internal mercy builds confidence and trust that extend far beyond the trial itself. Unseen wisdom also shapes timing. Many people wish for immediate relief, believing that delay only increases pain. Yet delay can be protective. It allows emotional growth, mental preparation, and spiritual grounding. If relief came too quickly, the lessons might be missed and the growth incomplete. Wisdom knows when a person is ready to receive what they are asking for. What feels like waiting is often preparation in progress. Another form of hidden mercy is the way hardship refines priorities. In times of ease, it is easy to become distracted by trivial concerns, false ambitions, or shallow relationships. Difficulty strips life down to what truly matters. It reveals who and what is essential and what can be let go without loss of meaning. This clarity, though painful to gain, becomes a gift that reshapes how a person lives long after the hardship ends. Trials also carry mercy in the way they soften the heart. Pain often increases empathy, making people more aware of the struggles of others. A person who has suffered becomes more patient, less judgmental, and more compassionate. This emotional depth is a form of wisdom that cannot be taught through advice alone. It changes how one listens, how one responds, and how one offers support. The hardship that once felt isolating becomes a bridge that connects hearts through shared understanding. There is wisdom, too, in being reminded of human limitation. When plans fail and control slips away, it humbles the heart. This humility is not meant to diminish self-worth, but to free a person from the exhausting burden of believing they must manage everything alone. In recognizing limitation, there is mercy in learning surrender, trust, and acceptance. These qualities bring peace that constant control never could. Sometimes mercy is hidden in protection from future pain. A person may be spared from a relationship, opportunity or desire they strongly wanted, only to later realize how damaging it would have been. At the moment of loss, this protection is invisible. Only time reveals how close one came to harm. In this way, hardship acts as a shield, even when it feels like a wound. Unseen wisdom also works through gradual healing. Not all wounds are meant to close quickly. Slow healing allows depth, reflection, and lasting change. It teaches patience and self-awareness. It prevents repetition of the same mistakes and ensures that growth is genuine rather than rushed. This process, though uncomfortable, leads to stability rather than temporary relief. Another aspect of hidden mercy is the way hardship strengthens reliance on what is constant. When external supports fail, the heart learns where true steadiness lies. This shift brings a sense of grounding that remains even after circumstances improve. The person no longer feels easily shaken by change because they have learned where to anchor their trust. Over time, many people look back at their most difficult moments and recognize how subtly they were guided. The pain was real, but so was the care surrounding it. Missed opportunities prevented deeper regret. Delays protected fragile hearts. Loss redirected lives toward greater meaning. What once felt like chaos reveals itself as order when viewed through the lens of time. Hidden mercy does not erase pain, nor does it demand that suffering be welcomed. It simply affirms that hardship is never empty, never random, and never wasted. Even when the reason is unclear and the outcome uncertain, there is wisdom at work, arranging growth, protection, and clarity in ways that human understanding cannot immediately grasp, and learning to trust this unseen care allows the heart to endure with calm hope. And quiet confidence holding on to hope is often misunderstood as passive optimism or denial of pain. But in reality, it is an active, deliberate act of worship that requires courage, trust, and inner strength. When life becomes heavy and answers seem distant, choosing hope is not easy. It goes against instinct, emotion, and sometimes logic. Yet this choice itself carries deep spiritual meaning because it reflects trust beyond what is visible. Hope, in this sense, is not about expecting ease. It is about believing that meaning, mercy, and wisdom exist even when circumstances suggest otherwise. In moments of hardship, despair feels natural. The heart grows tired, the mind becomes clouded, and the future feels uncertain. At such times, hope does not arrive loudly or dramatically. It often appears quietly in the decision to keep praying even when words feel empty, in the effort to continue doing good despite exhaustion, and in the refusal to let bitterness take root. These small acts of hope may seem insignificant, but they carry immense weight because they are chosen despite pain, not in the absence of it. Hope as an act of worship means trusting that nothing endured is meaningless. It means believing that there is purpose, even when clarity is missing. This belief transforms waiting into devotion and patience into strength. When a person holds on to hope, they are acknowledging that understanding is limited, but care is not. They are accepting that outcomes may not match expectations, yet still trusting that what unfolds will carry wisdom beyond immediate perception. This kind of hope reshapes the relationship between the believer and hardship. Instead of viewing difficulty as a dead end, it becomes a passage. The pain may still hurt, and questions may still arise, but hopelessness no longer dominates the heart. Hope keeps the soul alive during trials. It prevents emotional collapse and protects the spirit from becoming hardened or resentful. It allows a person to feel pain without being consumed by it. Holding on to hope also requires patience with oneself. During trials, people often judge themselves harshly for feeling weak, tired, or confused. Hope introduces gentleness into the process. It allows room for tears, pauses, and recovery without guilt. It reminds the heart that struggling does not mean failing, and that endurance does not always look like strength from the outside. Sometimes endurance is simply continuing, even slowly. Another powerful aspect of hope is that it shifts focus from immediate outcomes to long-term meaning. Instead of obsessing over when relief will come, The heart learns to focus on how to remain upright in the present moment. This shift reduces anxiety and restores balance. Hope teaches the soul to live within uncertainty without being crushed by it, trusting that clarity will come when it is meant to. Hope is also deeply connected to gratitude. Even in difficulty, hope searches for signs of care, no matter how small. A moment of peace, a kind word, a lesson learned, or strength gained becomes evidence that goodness still exists. This awareness does not ignore pain, but it prevents pain from becoming the sole narrative. Gratitude strengthens hope, and hope deepens gratitude, creating a cycle that sustains the heart through long trials. Choosing hope repeatedly builds spiritual resilience. Each time a person resists despair, they reinforce trust. Each time they choose to believe again, after disappointment, their faith matures. This process is rarely noticed in the moment, but over time, it creates a stable inner foundation. The person becomes less reactive, more grounded, and better able to face future challenges without losing balance. Hope as worship also affects how a person treats others. Someone who holds on to hope learns patience with people's flaws, understanding that everyone carries unseen burdens. They become less judgmental and more compassionate, recognizing their own vulnerability in others. Their hope does not remain internal. It radiates through kindness, understanding, and quiet encouragement. There is also humility in hope. It acknowledges that control is limited and outcomes are not always in human hands. This humility removes the pressure to have everything figured out. It allows surrender without defeat and trust without certainty. In this surrender, there is peace, because the heart no longer fights what it cannot change, but focuses on how to respond with dignity. Hope does not promise that pain will end quickly or that answers will arrive immediately. What it promises is presence, meaning, and continuity. It assures the heart that darkness is not permanent and that endurance itself has value. This assurance is enough to keep the soul moving forward, even when the path is unclear. Over time, those who hold on to hope often realize that hope was not merely something they clung to, it was something that shaped them, softened their hearts, strengthened their faith, and refined their character. What once felt like blind trust becomes lived experience. They understand that hope carried them when nothing else could, turning moments of waiting into moments of connection, trust, and quiet devotion.